You're listening to We All Go Forward, a podcast on self-leadership through setbacks. With ownership, action, and growth, be set back, only to be catapulted forward into a more progressed, truer you.
Hey guys, and welcome back to We All Go Forward podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you. And if you're tuning in and listening, I just would like to say thank you. Like, honestly, so much feedback, so much positivity, and so much support. So yes, honestly, thank you. And, I wanted to do something a little different today in terms of typically it's at the end of the podcast that we have all these call to actions in terms of, give it a like, give us, write a review if you'd like. But today I want to change that up. And I think that's the pace or the habit we'll pick up moving forward. And what I want to ask is that if this podcast resonates with you, if it aligns with you, or even if you just want to see, if you're tuning in for the first time and you're like, let me just see how this episode goes. I like this title. I believe it's something I really need right now. And if you start listening and you're feeling like, I know like one or two people who would really resonate with this, my ask for you today is to simply share the podcast. That's right. Your phone's already in your hand for some of you. I know some of us are like working out, getting a Taibo in. Okay. Billy Blanks. Yes, Billy Blanks. We're getting our Taibo in, or maybe you're driving and you cannot touch your phone right now. I completely understand that. However, if your phone is in your hand, just hit that share button. Matter of fact, if you are already used to the tone of the podcast and you know this is something someone would enjoy, just hit share. But for the rest of us, if you're listening and you're like, okay, I have a few people in mind, somebody at work, a family member, a friend, a spouse or a companion, I would like to share this with them, then I ask you today, please support in that way and just share the podcast. I would love that. Just to kind of just extend the reach in terms of listeners and people who may benefit from what we're talking about today. Sounds like a deal? All right, cool. Thank you. So moving on to what today's episode is actually about. Today we are talking about an important topic. So you'll notice that for today's episode, and actually I have a couple more coming up with some amazing guests who we're taking a bit of a shift. Not crazy. It's the same overall topic, but a shift that's going to focus on certain skills that I really feel like it's timely that we focus on. So some of those skills are like time management and as well as organization. And you're like, why? Why? Well, it's because if we're talking about self-leadership through setbacks, but self-leadership into this place of progress, there are some foundational skills, y'all, that we really need. And because a lot of times we're set back in life simply because we're not organized. Right? I don't know about you, but this is my testimony. A lot of times we're set back in life because we didn't manage our time well. We're set back because we're not making decisions in a timely manner. We're not prioritizing right. These are skills. And you know how we talk about skills a lot. So, I want to take some time at this time of year, at this point in the podcast, to just focus on these foundational skills because they're going to be key in us accelerating in our progress. Right? So, my plan for today is fairly simple. Today's goal is solely to give you a key. Now, there are a lot of keys to being better organized or having better time management. For this episode, we're talking about time management, but I want to give you a key that I was introduced to several years ago and I implemented, and it made a world of difference. And do I have ways to go when it comes to my time management or organization? Yes. That's why I said I dedicated episodes, plural, to this topic because I know how much it's been, it was and is an issue for me. And just, I know how much implementing these keys has made a huge, huge difference in my life. So that way I can, last year or a couple years ago, do I think I could have been a nurse, a mom, a wife, and a podcaster all at the same time? No. Now, there are some people who feel like, oh yeah, I could have, and that's just, we're talking surface level things, but there are other or I should say like grand titles, right? But there are other things in our day to day that really, take up space. And so, how do we get to a place where we're optimizing, right? That's what when we get to this progress, when we're seeing wellness or we're seeing health in different areas of our life, multiple areas of our lives, and we're happy with what we see. It takes skills like this. And so I'm going to give you a key that I have used in order to help me manage my time better. And I, of course, first, I just want to talk a little bit about what time management is or why time management. And I was just recalling to myself, like so many really great statements or sticky notes that I've heard around time management. One woman in particular, I could not for the life of me remember her name, which I was upset about. But I heard her speak when I was a part of, your girl be signing up for things, okay? Because I was a part of this literature academy, and it's something that the Budgetnista, I've mentioned her once before in this podcast. She had like a subscription program where you can learn to live richer. And I said, live richer? Oh, sign me up. I must be a part. That's the conversation I had in my head. Nonetheless, there was the speaker, a lot of different topics, and she said, time management is me management. And that hit me like poof, right? Because that's truth. We always talk about how everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. No one can, be upset or cry unfair to the fact that, oh, this person has more time than me, okay? Whether it's me or Jeff Bezos. Now, of course, Jeff Bezos' millions upon billions may afford him the opportunity to, include people who help him stay accountable or people who keep him in check throughout the day. All right, that's fine, that's fair. But at the end of the day, all of Jeff Bezos' money, he cannot purchase an additional minute in a day. Right? And so this is where we all are humbled. We're all the same. We all have the same amount of time to do the same amount of work. And if I'm not liking what I see in my 24 hours, then that causes me to call myself into accountability. What am I doing with my time? So time management is me management. Dr. Darius Daniels, he says that time management is not a gift. Like it's not something you're just automatically born with. It's not a talent. It is a decision. And I think that's very powerful. He even goes on to define time management and says that it's the ability to strategically invest the time you have to achieve the life you want. I'm going to let that settle in because you really can't summarize it any better, right, than those two examples, but I'm going to hit you with another one. Dr. Miles Monroe. So many people have talked on this topic, successful people, if you pay attention. And so that should cause our spidey senses to go off like, let me pay attention to what they're saying. Dr. Miles Monroe often talks about the fact that time is a currency. We say we're spending time, right? Spending time, paying attention. He talks about how it's a currency, and that when you take a look at your life, what you see is a reflection of where you've invested your time. It's an investment, literal. And so we could think about this financially, but we don't often make the connections. Well, I won't say everybody, but for some of us who are challenged, don't always make the connections in terms of our time. It's every day you got that $24 or you got that, however you want to think about it. And where are you putting those dollars? And after you've spent what you need to spend, rightfully so, on your duties and things that you need to do, are you keeping track of the excess so that you can spend it on the things that you want to do? Ultimately, guys, we get what we pay for. Like, again, Macaulay Culkin face, mind blown. If we have an unfulfilled life, we paid for it. If we have a cluttered life, we paid for it. Whatever life we have, we paid for it with our time and with our attention. And so naturally at this time, you're probably thinking, okay, I believe you, okay? But my Tommy gun don't. I believe you, Kim. I need to manage my time better. How? Well, that is where we introduce this key that I want to give. A lot of times we think that the way that we start to manage our time better is by, and this is not me downplaying, these are things that I do, right? So we think that managing our time is going to we're automatically going to get better at managing our time if we attend a seminar. We're automatically going to get better. This is what we think, that at managing our time if we write hella notes, right? Because a sister got notes. I got notes for days. And my time management was looking quite the same. Okay. We think I'll get better at time management if I get one of those beautiful toxic trait planners. Okay. I love a good planner. Actually, it's on my list, okay, to have a We All Go Forward planner. Okay. Because who doesn't love a good planner? And planners are very helpful. There is nothing wrong with these things. There are apps, there are planners, there are seminars. We're all about learning how to do the things that we don't know how to do, right? Nothing in that is wrong. However, we're not going to automatically walk away and manage ourselves, which is managing our time better on account of doing these things. So how do we do it? Well, something I learned several years ago is that the first step to actually managing your time better is to clarify your values. And that's what I'm going to help you with today in today's episode. Before you say, Kim, this is not for me, I implore you, just give me a chance, stick it out. You're going to see this is very practical. I'm trying to tell you a practical step. I'm going to actually share what my value, like a snippet of what my values look like, how I have it laid out. And then how from that, I was able to make hard decisions, guys. I was able to start like cutting things in my life very clearly. I got really clear on, okay, this is what I'm doing, that this is just busy work, right? And it's not a downplay. Myron Golden always talks about how we'll do the wrong thing every time. It's right in terms of it's not innately bad, but it's wrong for us. It's a distraction, but we do it because it's easy, because it looks good on a resume, because it looks good on paper, because we quote unquote should be doing this at this point of our lives. Like everybody should be a part of that organization. Everybody should have this volunteer. I'm not discouraging from volunteering. Please hear what I'm saying. But we're saying that it's like we think that there's one path to looking like a productive individual. And yet we're feeling so much like we're not settled. We don't have any peace. We're feeling like run down. We're feeling run over. It's because we often dedicate our time to things that are not aligned with our priorities and our values. And so if we learn to do that, it becomes very clear on what to say no to, what to walk away from. Okay. Because as we've all heard, and if you haven't heard, people say the reason why it's important to say no is because what you don't say no to, when you can't say no to certain things, then you can't say yes to the things that you really need to be saying yes to. It's like we think that this is just victimless crime, quote unquote, not to use that term, but yeah, we think it's like nothing goes wrong in the world. Nothing goes wrong in my world if I just keep saying yes to all these, responsibilities, saying yes to all these projects, saying yes to things that we don't even truly care about, or it doesn't match up with what we should be doing in our lives right now that's purposeful. And so we say yes to all these things. Our calendars are full and we're wondering why we're not feeling fulfilled. And it's because nothing is matching up with what we are proclaiming to ourselves and saying that this is important. And that's really a first step when we talk about the values thing. But we have to be able to actually self-proclaim this. We have to write down and get clear on what are our values. But even for some of us, once we think we know, or we say we know our values, we're telling our brain this is what is important to us. But yet nothing in our day-to-day matches up and says you're making important what you say is important, right? So this is the gold with understanding and outlining our values, because now your decisions can match up to what you're saying is important to you. And the to you part, guys, I can't even stress how important that is, because there's going to come, the thing is, when you start to make these changes, right? When you start to like, quote unquote, stand on business, in terms of what's important to you and what your values are. First, your values are your values. They're not going to look like anybody else's. And so as you start to proclaim and live your life in a way that's showing what's important to me is how I'm living my life to match up with that, people around you, even people who love you, they're going to wonder. sometimes, and again, it's not always malicious. Some people are just like, some people are selfish with your time and want you to do what they want you to do. But a lot of times it's just people who care about you, like, whoa, this looks different. And you got to be able to stand in yeah, it does look different. And it may not make sense to you, but that's okay. Because one day it will, and it will, okay? Because I can even say wholeheartedly, I have a mentor and she is amazing. I go to her for a lot of things. And around the time that I was making a lot of the cuts in my life on account of getting clear on some certain things, she asked me, "You okay?" She asked me, "You having a midlife crisis?" She knows exactly who she is. I could say her name, but maybe I won't, because maybe I'll bring on a guest soon. But she was like, "Are you all right, sister child?" And that's what I love about her, the honesty. And yes, I was all right. But the reason, I don't know if I put it in these words. I think I did, but here's what's important when you start to make cuts. Some things that I started to say no to, right, when I was making these cuts in my life, I did it on account of I was now healthy in an area, right? So some things I cut and release as I got healthy. Once I was healthy, I was able to see I can no longer tolerate or be impacted by or, be associated with certain things any longer. It doesn't necessarily mean that those things are like evil or so bad, but it's just that those things were no longer for me. And so since I was different, since I was evolving, certain associations had to be different. They no longer could be. And that was that. But other things that I ended up cutting, some that even related to her as my mentor, somebody that I cared about, I had to cut them as I became more aware of where I was unhealthy and how unhealthy I was. So it's like, you have to keep that balance, right? I have to understand the fact that just because I'm healthy, and which we talked about in one area, doesn't mean that I'm automatically healthy in other areas. You can simultaneously be struggling in one area while doing okay in another, right? And so I started to realize I can't serve this thing. I can't serve this person. I can't serve this organization well while I'm broken, while I'm unhealthy. And that was the perspective that I needed. Like, my esteem is broken, not this thing. My esteem is not right. My perspective is not right, not this person. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that sometimes, again, those things or people could take it as you're rejecting them. And it's like, no, actually, because I care about you, I want to do well by you. And so I know it could sometimes sound like the it's me, it's not you argument, but sometimes that is truth. And it's very important, particularly when you're capable and when you're gifted, right? Because when you're very talented or you're just good at what you do, people can often take your good and it presents very beautifully, right? It presents as you're doing fine compared to what other people might doing, but you know better. Like, I knew better within myself. Like, I'm not giving this what I could be. I knew better that my heart's not in it. And so you, again, have to be able to stand on the fact that I could do great in this, but this is not where I can and need to be dedicating my time and effort. And as a result, you're freeing up that person or that organization or that group to find somebody who's wholeheartedly committed to it. If you clarify your values, so when we're talking about values, what are our values? I've mentioned a lot of times in this podcast that our values are the floor, right? It's where we start when it comes to our decision making and our guidance, because your values are your compass in life. They are how you decide what you decide. They are what lead you in what is right, what is wrong, what is bad, what is good for you. Now, of course, across the board, there are things, right, that are right and wrong, black and white. However, it's the gray, right, that we often get tripped up on. We get tripped up on something might be totally right. Like, it's not innately bad or good, but something might work well, I should say, for one person. And for you, it's not working because we're not the same. We're not cut from the same cloth. And so if we're going to progress in life, part of the me management is understanding how we work. Part of the me management is understanding that just because something works really well in your life doesn't mean that it'll automatically work well in my life. It's not going to work right with Kim. So Kim now has the responsibility of exploring what are those fundamental beliefs that are going to govern my life. They're going to govern how I walk. They're going to govern how I dress. They're going to govern how I talk. They're going to govern how I interact with people, right? They're going to govern how I treat them. They're going to govern whether or not I decide to get married. If I have children, how I raise those children. It governs every aspect of my life. That's why values are important. Okay, so we've made the arguments for time management. We've made the arguments for values. And so let me get into the system that I use for my values. Similar to the person who introduced this to me, I used alliteration, and that just when I started mapping out all of my values, they all happened to, like, the first few started with the same letter. And so just for memorization's sake, I was like, let's see if I can keep this up. And I was able to. And so I can call mine either the F6 system, or ironically, I can call it the L6 system, because after like a year or so of working with my system, I started noticing a trend. And to help me remember what each value meant to me, I just wrote like a quick word or definition. And all those words or definitions started with the letter L. That's how my value system is laid out. But you do what's best for you. It doesn't have to start with the same letter. Maybe you want to do a rhyme. Maybe you want to do a rap. A wiggity, wiggity. Okay. So you will get a pen and a paper, and you will just start to literally write out, maybe start with a statement as to what's important to you in life. And from there, you start to draw out your values. So I'll share mine so you guys can get an idea as to how I started to pull out, create like a weekly calendar or weekly to-dos just solely based off of these values. And so my F6 were faith, family, freedom, fairness, finances, and fulfillment. Then I broke it down even further to distinguish the fact that faith, family, and freedom are things that I want to work on daily, right? And yet the fairness, finances, and fulfillment values are things that I dedicate distinct days to, right? And so where the L's come in, I'll kind of give the L explanation as I break down each one. So faith I solely just describe that as light, right? For my faith value, it's very important for me to pray, meditate. It's important for me to read and study. It's important for me to journal and express gratitude. It's important for me to learn and practice principles, right? I've talked a lot about principles, how principles are how you can guarantee your success. I wholeheartedly believe that. So it's very important for me to learn the principles of God. And so I incorporate that into my life. And so again, if I'm saying faith is a value for me, then my life needs to look like I'm dedicating time throughout my week to things that relate to those areas that I outline in faith, right? So you have to get very granular in this, y'all. I got the titles, right? And I defined what it meant, right? So faith to me, and a quick summary for me so I can always remember what it means, is light. And because I want to be enlightened, I want to be a light to others. I want my path to be lit. I want it to be clear to me what I should be doing. And so then I started to break down what I'm going to do, like what under that value, the value of faith, what it looks like. And that's where I got those meditation prayers, reading my word, etc. My value for family. So for me, I define that quickly as love. And that's literally when it comes to like family. So that's husband time, date nights. That's kids time, prioritizing playing with them, prioritizing their interests, prioritizing, incorporating what's important to them in my schedule. That also looks like my home, right? This is where I started to pay attention to, no wonder I'm not happy if my home is feeling like a mess or disorganized, or I'm not able to dedicate all the time that I like to my home, because for me, home is important. Family is important. I'm saying that, but yet I'm spending 3 hours at this rehearsal, and I'm spending 4 hours at this place, and I'm spending, literally, guys, we'll talk about that another time. And again, that's why I made that I made that distinction to say it's not about evil, it's not about bad, but the places that I was spending all these times at, they were quote unquote, like, these are places that anybody in the world would encourage you to say, oh yeah, that's great, you're spending time there. However, for me, they were time thieves. Not the place, not what it represents, but what that place at that time was requiring of me. And I had to be like, you know what? this is way too much time that I'm dedicating to this very important thing. Hopefully you can find somebody else, or hopefully you can get better at managing what this needs to look like, what this program or what this, whatever it needs to look like. So that way people can serve it better and still go home. But for me, I got to make the hard decisions to step away so that way I can go home and manage my home. That looks like, honestly, y'all, even in this step, I broke down meal prep, nutrition. That's important to me. What my family's eating. That means I need to leave time for grocery shopping. Y'all, if my daughter is important to me, my son is important to me, that means everything concerning them is important, including their hair. Come on now. Now, my non-melanated listeners, listen, you still got to spend time on your hair and all that jazz. But I know you've heard, if you have a Black friend, you might have heard them say Black girl problems, okay? And so the wash days, if you don't, if I'm your Black friend, I'm going to tell you right now. But if you have some, just ask. Or any curly hair friend, because I want to make that distinction, okay? Black people are not the only one that deal with the frizzies, and we're not the only one that deals with the the detangling needs. Okay, some of our Jewish brothers and sisters, they got the curls, they got the kinks, they got the coils, okay? And some of a lot of different people, we've seen white and Latino, anyway, they have their own version. They have curls, they have tangles. It needs to be dealt with, okay? But Black girl problems, I'm going to tell you, it's the wash day, okay? Sister Roman, that's what I call my daughter when she's acting problematic. Sister Roman, when it's time to wash her hair, I might as well just scratch off. I'll be back, y'all, next week. I see y'all later, maybe. Okay, I'm going to call out. No, I don't call out, but it makes me want to but I have to prioritize that because her looking her best, and not just looking her best, her hair being healthy is important to me. My son's haircut time. So doctor's appointments, errands, extracurriculars, all these things fell for me. I outlined that under my family goal. The next daily goal, or the last daily goal or value, I should say, was freedom. And you might say, well, what does that mean? That can mean a lot of different things. For me, I defined it quickly as leadership and leadership of self. Sounds familiar? Yes. If I have a podcast on this, I told y'all this is because it's important to me. And so what freedom look like to me is that leading myself in a way where I can truly be free, where everything that I have to do, how can I describe this? That I'm not cutting short any potential on account of not leading myself well, right? So that means that I need to, in order to be free and to move around and to do the things that I need to do in life and to really truly enjoy my life, then I need to lead my body well. I need to lead my mind well. I need to lead my spirit well. And so that looks like me prioritizing. Listen, I go through cycles. I'm going to be honest. I'll be honest with y'all. And that's the thing about this values. This is just, again, it's still something that's written, but you're getting clear on it and you're trying to live your life day to day to match up with it. And that's how you're going to see results. But are you going to have perfect results every day? No. Are you going to have perfect results every week? No. Will things change? Yeah. Your values themselves may not change, but what you're doing with underneath each title, yeah. And so that looks like me making time to go to the gym. I could tell you right now, I haven't been making time. I was doing really well with making time at home to exercise my body because I want to live well. I want to have the freedom to bend down, breathe, live long enough to see my kids get married. I want to have that freedom in my life to travel and not worry about the fact that I have these chronic issues that are stopping me. Chronic issues that I see within my family or previous generations. I don't want that for myself, right? And so prioritizing exercising my body, prioritizing exercising my mind. If I want to be free from low-level thinking, right? If I want to be free in terms of, like, my pastor talks about this all the time, like level 3 living, which is level 1 is the world or culture's way, which trends we know change left and right. But level 2 is the church's way. People, for me as a Christian, I'll talk on that because just because it's church don't mean that it's always right. Okay? And the church should not take an offense to that, because ultimately the church should recognize you're human, you're imperfect, and you're trying to live God's way. And so for me, there's level 1, world's way, level 2, church's way, level 3, God's way. And so I'm not trying to live on level 1 or level 2. I'm trying to be free of any toxic religion, of any toxic trends, of any toxic cultural thinking. I'm trying to be free in my spirit and live my life accordingly, right? And so I could go a little bit more. I'll just say quickly, that because, I want you guys to be working on your values. But the last 3 values were the fulfillment. And for me, that L, like to quickly define it, was lives. And that's touching lives, right? And so that's not just, that's really not in the outreach sense in terms of, for example, what I'd like We All Go Forward to be. I'll talk about that in one of my other, the other value. But for me, this fulfillment really came to my life and the lives of those who I care about. This is friendship. This is family. And I really needed to make this a value and break it down, because again, with my personality, I realize it's not just my personality. I think it's things that have occurred throughout my life that I picked up these habits. I could think wholeheartedly that someone and people are important to me, but the exhibiting that it doesn't come easy for me. It doesn't. And it's funny because people are like, people either think that I'm very social or they think that I'm very quiet. It just depends on how you meet me. And both are true, because I'm not quiet, but I definitely can be in my head and isolate. And that could be a good or a bad thing, right? But I always say I'm not great at making friends. And the friends that I have it's been like an organic meeting, or it's been like from, one situation. And as a result, when I let my crazy self out, and they're like, weird, but I like it. And that's how that happens. But, even though I seem very social, I always say that I am a, what do you call it? Introvert versus extrovert. I'm an extroverted introvert. That's what that is. So anyway, touching the fulfillment value here when it comes to lives is making a priority to call my aunt, all my aunts, all of my, my great aunts, my aunts, just call them and checking on them. Making it a priority to pick up their calls, right? Making it a priority to visit people that I heard are sick, people that, I used to go to church with, or people who are in my community, making it a priority to maybe visit a neighbor. And again, from me, y'all, this might be once. For that person, I might have visited them and I might not have seen them for 6 months. I'll be honest, because my brain is these are areas that I'm trying to improve. However, for me, I'm making those strides I visited them and now I'm going to call them and then I'm going to text them. And it might not be every day. Some people are really good at, they can visit somebody every day. They can visit somebody every week. They don't miss a beat. That might not be me. However, I always try to be mindful of sending a card, or if I can donate in an area, or just anything, right? Other things that fall under this topic for this value for me in terms of my life: rest. That's fulfillment to me. Travel. That's fulfillment to me. Volunteerism. That's fulfillment to me as well. Hobbies. I want to be able to take a hike, dance. Drumming has been on my list of to-do since forever, but it's something that I write it down so I don't forget that this is important to me, because we think we won't forget what's important to us, but we do. Other things here, finances. Finances is something that is one of my values, and my L here, to quickly define this to me, is legacy. Or I also put long-standing impact, because I don't want to just get rich. I mean, being rich is great, but I don't want to get rich just to be rich. For me, it's really important to what can I do with my finances? And so I made a list under here. Why are all these things important? Because I want to save. I want to be able to pay off debts, and I want to be able to tithe, and I want to give offerings, but I also want to give. Give is really important to me. And that leads me to my last value, which is the fairness value, right? Which you guys might have been thinking, what is fairness? And for me, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the L there is leveling the field, right? All I think about there is there are wrongs that are in this world. Anywhere you look, different countries, different communities, different cities, different families, there are wrongs that are being perpetrated. And I want to be a part of making them right. And this is where we all go forward. This is where the podcasting is important, because if there's a wrong that's been made in terms of our thinking, whether it's through trauma or whether it's through our environment, if I've learned better, I want to be a part of making that better for somebody else. And I want to bring on people who are going to make that better for me. If there's a wrong that's been done, in terms of systematically, I want to be a part of writing that. Like, and these are a lot of my long-term goals, right? But this is something where I have goals for scholarships and I have goals for high-level fundraising to implement systems that really change. And it's not about self-pity. It's about implementing things that are sustainable for change, that have sustained people to now manage themselves well. And so we can all have a better tomorrow. And these are the things I care about. Okay, don't judge me. Don't judge me. Okay. All right, listen, don't judge me. All right. I think you picked it up, but pretty much as a result of my F6 system or my L6 system, this is why I can say today I'm going to do a load of laundry. Today I'm going to do the hard thing. And even though I'm working at 7 p.m., I'm going to cook dinner. Or maybe not. I'm going to order something, but we're going to order, something based off of what the kids like. Today, I'm going to do my daughter's hair. Today, I'm going to sit down with my spouse and spend some time, even if it's in front of watching a show we like or, having a conversation. Today, I'm going to record my podcast. Today, from this time to this time, I'm going to read. Today, I'm going to take a walk. This is how I can make those decisions, and I can quickly, because if people are asking me, hey, can you do this thing? I just go faith, family, fairness, fulfillment, finance. If you don't line up, you got to go. Okay. Because if you think you're lonely now, wait into my F6 system. I'm going to say no. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I broke out into that song. Okay. But we don't know. We don't know. We don't care. I'll pull down your underwear. All right. I think this is when I have to call it a quits. I'm going to end here because I am clearly done. I am saying strange and peculiar things. And thank you very much for listening. That is why we need our values aligned. So that way we can now start to make better decisions. We'll have peace. We'll have calm. We'll have happiness. And will it be us prancing in the prairie every day? No. It's really hard to make a change, guys. We talked about this too. Subconsciously, your brain is going to be like, hold up. I say, hold up. But this is me right now, just in case. I like to pull fake guns out on people. So right now I got the finger gun pointed at you. This is what your subconscious is doing to you. Hold up. Get your hands up. I said, get your hands up. What you doing? We don't do laundry at 9 a.m. What you doing? Hold on. We don't turn the TV off at this point. I said, what you doing? This is my show. Okay? Wickedy. But that's when you say, brain, I know this is hard for you. This is a change, but I've got to do this because what I'm going to get on the other side is going to be so much better. And we're making this change, brain. Okay? We're making a change. Get in line. Pimp smack. That's right. That's what you do. This is what I imagine to your brain, to your thoughts. And then it might come back, because the brain is tough. Remember, it got the finger gun. Wicca. Okay? The gun, that was me whipping out the gun. The brain's got the finger gun. But you just you push the finger gun back on the brain and say, it's the imagination, guys. You could say, okay, you had a finger gun, evaporate. This is where you use your magical powers. Okay, your Doctor Strange powers, evaporate. Now I got a bazooka on your brain. What you going to do? What you going to do? What you going to do? And at that point, the brain can't do anything. It can't do anything because it's lost, because you are in control. The brain realizes she's in control of me. And I said, yeah, I am. Okay. You were a true adversary, a true opponent, but I win. I win, grasshopper. I win. And that's it. All right. So I've had so much fun with you guys today, just being crazy. But I'm going to leave us with a fun fact that I truly believe applies to our talk today. As part of this, I have shared, if you follow me on social media, but not as in depth as I wanted to, because obviously having things written is much different than listening to things. So here's our fun fact. Fun fact. We often know a change of season based on what has already changed tangibly. Leaves fall in the fall season. Buds sprout in the spring. And temperatures drastically change in the summer and in the winter. But often, those external, tangible changes, although our awareness is now heightened in the present on account of them, they are simply indications of what has long taken place intangibly. What do I mean? Well, did you know that before leaves fall, a tree goes through a very intentional and internal process called abscission? Now, this doesn't apply to evergreen trees because they have waxes and resins that protect the leaves from freezing in the cold. But for all other trees, this process takes place long before leaves fall, or which is what we call it, but we could accurately say it takes place long before leaves are released. During abscission, hormones are activated within a tree or a plant to initiate the launch of this process. This process includes a few things. One, chlorophyll production is stopped. And that's why we see this pigment change from this green to these beautiful reds and yellows. In addition, vessels that typically carry water and sugar throughout the plant are now cut off and they're closed off by this layer of cells called the abscission layer. And because of that, that's why the process can result in what I said was a clean break for the leaf, in addition to no open wounds on the tree. We've been talking a lot about values and how we have to learn to say no in order to say yes to all the things that bring us purpose and fulfillment and peace and alignment. And so I want us to take a lesson from the tree. You ever stop to think why a tree even has to do this in the first place? Well, I started talking about it, but if a tree that's not evergreen doesn't understand that a season has come, a time in my life has come where I have to stop giving literal energy. I have to stop literally supplying my resources and energy to this leaf. If it doesn't recognize it, not only does it hurt itself, but it hurts the leaf. And here's how. Let's say the tree says, I can't make this decision. It's too hard. I'll go against this necessary, inevitable process, and I won't release the leaf. It's a victimless crime. Nothing will go wrong in the world if I don't say no. It's easier to say yes. Well, when the inevitable change of season occurs, attached leaves that are now susceptible to freeze and rupture in the cold will do so, rendering them useless, unhealthy, unproductive, and unable to produce food through photosynthesis. In addition, that tree fighting that barrier, it leaves a clear path from a now injured, diseased leaf to itself. And now the tree's physical integrity is at risk. But when the tree decides to do the hard thing with the cut, the leaves can fall away. Yes, they fall away. Yes, they're separated. Yes, this is a big deal for the leaf. Yes, it's even changed in color. But it's whole in integrity, able to be recycled for nutrients for new plant life in the next season. The tree makes a hard decision. It says, you know what? This version of me may be misunderstood. It may initially seem selfish, but it makes the sacrifice. It makes the intentional hard cut because the cut is protection. It's self-protection and it's protection for the leaf. The cut is regeneration. And this kind of cut was only possible because the tree recognized its season. Well, friends, you've guessed it. This all applies to us. You've been undergoing some internal changes. You've been evolving, and it's forming a barrier between you and the things that no longer serve you. Don't fight it. A version of you could never cut off things, places, people, associations. Listen, perhaps you had the time, the energy to give. Perhaps it was beneficial, was being the operative word. But perhaps now things are changing. Listen, when life is warm, bright, when things are on the up and up, it's easy for people or things that are not our responsibility to stay attached to us. But life has seasons. And one thing's for sure, Two things for certain: it will back you into a cold corner. Proverbial winds will forcefully blow. Temps will get frigid. And whatever was quote unquote hot now is literally freezing up. Setbacks on 10. The reality is some things must fall away before someone is left injured. You're changing and you're no longer the same version of yourself. How do I know? Ask me how I know. Well, just like the tangible changes in nature that heighten our awareness to what was already changing inwardly, you have outward changes that have heightened your awareness. Look at you. The fact that you're even willing to make the cut, like who that is, who are you? The fact that you're uneasy, you're on this podcast because you're feeling protective over your time. Not for ego. Hear me. It's not for unhealthy isolation, but it's because you've got the revelation that time is currency and you need to spend it wisely on the things that matter, on things that propel you towards purpose and a fulfilled life. That's the tangible proof that the internal work started long before this moment. Your values, honestly, go explore what they are. Outline specific things you'd like to do to prove to yourself daily that these values are what matter to you. Then do them. And before you know it, you'll say no and yes much easier. You'll trust that you said no with a pure intention. You're making cuts that are clean for others and wound-less for you. Before you know it, your days and your weeks will be filled with you doing the things that manifest the life and the love you want. And guess what? That's progress. Hey guys, thank you so much for rocking out with us in this episode. Listen, if you are feeling we all go forward, I ask of you, subscribe. I don't want you to miss whenever our episodes drop. Also, remember, as we move in the right direction, that is forward and progressing, never stagnant, we become a resource to help others move in the right direction as well. And the cycle continues, but only if we move. If you go and I go, then we all go forward. Let's get moving.